We have moved, as I said earlier in the service, into a new month with a new theme on the Wheel of Life. And we're going to spend a month of Sundays exploring one of the juiciest parts of life, relationships. And I often say that the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our relationships. And I could go even a bit further and say the purpose of our lives is found and lived out in relationships. So today we're going to talk about the primary relationship we all have and we've always had, the relationship with ourselves. So to start this lesson off, I've asked Derek to help me lead you in a wonderful song that's going to get in your head and it's going to remind you and help you remember to love ourselves and each other. I love myself so much. I love myself so much that I can love you so much, that you can love you so much, that you can start loving me. It's easy, y'all. Sing it. I love myself so much that I can love you so much, and you can love you so much, then you can start loving me. Look around at your neighbors. I love myself so much that I can love you so much, that you can love you so much, that you can start loving me. One more time. I love myself so much that I can love you so much, and you can love you so much, and you can start loving me.
Thanks for joining, y'all.
So the question is, why? Why do you think so many of us have a hard time loving ourselves? You know, maybe it's because we judge ourselves so harshly and we hold ourselves to a standard of perfection. And when we fall short of that standard, the self-talk is so harsh. You know, maybe it's because it's easy to look back at our experiences and see so many things that we wish we could just go back and change. And maybe it's because we remember the hard or harsh circumstances we have found ourselves in, and somehow we blame ourselves or think that there was something wrong with us because it is our history. Maybe it's because we compare our bodies, our personalities, our flaws, our choices, our situations, or whatever to other people that seem to have their act together, and we always feel like we come up short. I don't know what your reason may be, but I know the journey to life fulfillment and happiness starts with opening the door to learning how to love yourself. So I want to start off this month with a quote from Brene Brown. Why not start with the best, right? So Brene says this: I now see how owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing we will ever do. So my talk title is The Bravest Thing, because I'm challenging all of us to be brave enough to own our stories and to have a meaningful relationship with ourselves. So one of the fundamental things that I like to remind people of is this: you are the only person, that you will spend your entire life with. Everyone else joins you in your life at some point and exits your life at another point. The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation upon which all other relationships are formed. So you bring yourself into connection with a bajillion other people. Terry and I were discussing, what is a bajillion? A bajillion's a heck of a lot. Let's just say that. You bring yourself into connection with all these bajillion other people, but you are the common denominator. So, how you treat yourself can offer great insight into how you treat others and how you want other people to treat you. Because what we know is what we expect out there deeply reflects what we expect in here. So I simply believe that the purpose of life is to learn to love and accept everything as an expression of God, and that starts with seeing that in yourself. So everything that you have experienced on your life journey, everything, has all been learning about more love of self. That's what it is. Every single element of your story is important as a part of that journey, as a part of that love of self unfolding. So, owning your story is about accepting everything that has happened or not happened without shame. We talked about that word in Sacred Cup this morning, shame. Loving yourself is about picking up every piece of your life and looking at it, claiming it as yours, and accepting that you did the best you could in every scenario. You did the best you could. We are programmed to do the best we can do in every moment that we're in, and we release ourselves from it lovingly. Every point is a choice point of self-love. You either love yourself and accept yourself, or you blame and shame yourself throughout life. Think about it. Think of some of the major things that have happened in your life. Just think about it. You've either given yourself the credit or the blame for those things, or you've given luck or fate the credit when things go well, or blamed something outside of yourself for the things that didn't go well. That's typically the path of life. And each little thing either ticks your self-esteem up or it ticks your self-esteem down. And our goal in spirituality is to focus on ticking your view of yourself one thought at a time, higher and higher. So one point I want to make today is about self-identification. If we're going to love ourselves, we must first identify ourselves in a loving way and in a way that takes into consideration the entire picture of who we are. So most of us habitually identify ourselves by some human fact about us that kind of stands out in our mind in that moment. Sometimes it's a role we play. What follows the word I am in your self-description says a lot. If it's a role, it could be I'm a mother, or I'm a manager, I'm a supervisor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an activist, or whatever role stands out for you. And sometimes we identify ourselves by an experience we've had, such as I'm a cancer survivor, or I'm a medical miracle, or I'm a veteran, or I'm an addict. Whatever it is, an experience we've had becomes our identity. And sometimes we identify ourselves by a group that we belong to. So I'm a certain race, or I'm a teenager, a certain age, I'm a cisgendered woman, I'm in this group, and that's how I identify myself. So is your self-identification expanding you or limiting you? Does your description of yourself, even in your own mind, empower you or devalue you? Are you taking into consideration this multi-layered person that you are when you identify yourself? And do your words of self-identification bring you up or tear you down? So part of self-love is of recognizing and acknowledging your entire story. And remember, Brene said that's the bravest thing we'll ever do, is own our entire story. And the path to self-love is learning to look at all the different layers of your existence. We always must remember that we are spiritual beings exploring what it means to be human. And being a human, y'all, it's messy. It's messy business. We reminded ourselves this morning, wait, we're human. We're human. And if we're inclined to self-degradation, the messiness overshadows the beauty and the order of our own minds as we think about and we talk about ourselves. We can't let one experience or one issue with our life define us. Audre Lorde famously said this: there is no thing as a single issue struggle, because we do not live single issue lives. So healing your relationship with yourself isn't about focusing on one aspect of at a time. Everything in your life is intertwined. So if we have condemnation toward ourselves for one thing, it's going to show up across all these other parts of our lives. So self-esteem issues, if you've gotten your self-esteem low, that's going to show up as issues in your family. It's going to show up at work. It's going to show up financially, your health. Lots of different things are are enhanced or detracted from by how we view ourselves. So the truth is, there's only one God, right? We know that. There's only God, right? We cannot claim to love God while hating ourselves. Let me say that again. You can't claim to love God if you don't love yourself. We cannot claim to love God while hating anyone else either, for that matter, right? Every relationship, including the one we have with ourselves, is ultimately and actually a relationship with spirit. So do you have the courage to identify yourself as a God being, if only in the quiet of your mind? If you can't just walk around the world going, I'm a being of God, but can you acknowledge that in your own mind at least? Start there. Can you see everything from that perspective and love yourself for everything you've gone through as part of your human experience, as part of what makes you who you are? And the wonder of this relationship, the wonder of it encompasses all that we are, even the parts that we don't like. Living everyday wonder in relationship to ourself means learning to love and care for and nurture and envelop our whole self, especially those little hurt parts, shame-filled, guilt-ridden parts, and be proud of your entire story, because your entire story brought you here. And this is so important because what we know and believe about ourselves becomes the law of your life. That's Science of Mind 101. What we think and hold true about ourselves becomes the law. In other words, it's the mental equivalent that keeps showing up over and over in everything we encounter. If we don't know we deserve the best, and we deserve to be treated fairly with compassion and grace, that we can move about freely, reaching toward the good of our lives. If we don't know that, then none of that is drawn to us. We don't magnetize it to us. You know, I've said for years that the basis of spirituality is self-esteem. The higher our self-esteem or our love of self is, the more we expect out of life. And the more we expect out of life, the more we receive. That's the law, period. It's how the law works. So whatever stands between you and your self-esteem must be healed and released if your life is going to continue to improve, and that's self-love. You know, I was talking to Terry about this the other day. As a New Thought minister and a religious scientist for over 20 years, I truly see, Susan and I were talking about this too, I truly see the highest possibility for people. I truly see it. I see the healthiest relationship, the biggest bank accounts, the sweetest life is possible for you and you and you and you and you. I see it. But I realize more and more that it doesn't matter if I can see it for someone. They have to see it for themselves. You have to see it for yourself. Each person gets to set the glass ceiling for themselves. And it's set by how much can you love yourself? How much can you accept yourself? No one can love you or know a bigger good for you than you can know for yourself. And you know how I know that? Because I want the best, and I know the best for all of you. But you get to decide, where does your good stop? But on the flip side of that, no one can make you think less of yourself unless you let them. Nothing has power over where your ceiling of self-love is set except for you, unless you say, here, why don't you set myself, why don't you tell me how much I can love myself? And we don't do that. So, you know this, coming out of the same home, the same circumstances, one sibling will come out with high self-esteem and have this amazing life, create a life they deeply enjoy. And another sibling will leave the home, that upbringing, with low self-esteem, and they just struggle and struggle and struggle. Self-love matters. And so I invite you to love yourself. And once you've made the decision to love yourself, how do you practice that? If you've made the decision, okay, Laine, I get it. I want to love myself. I'm going to do that. What do I do next? I don't think there's a great big secret to that. You love yourself the same way you love anyone else, one moment at a time, 1 hour at a time, one day at a time. And so we practice self-care as diligently as we would practice caring for another. It's a spiritual practice, and this demonstrates to yourself and to the world that you value yourself and that you understand your self-worth. You know, in my radical self-love, I taught a radical self-love, gosh, I think it was last February or something like that. And we all did this deep dive into practicing self-love and self-care. And every student committed to love themselves radically. And I invite you to do that now too. And the first invitation is to love your body radically. You know, we spent all last month talking about our magic suits, all last month, how to love it. I hope you learned more about what the body is and how to honor the body. And the second invitation was to love your heart radically. You know, take care to understand your own feelings, your own emotions, and finding ways to express them and honor them beautifully. And the third invitation in that class was to love your mind and fill it with gorgeousness and stimulation that enhances your life and your self-love. And one of the most profound ways we can improve our self-love is to overhaul our dialogue, right? Both that internal and external dialogue. Watch carefully how you talk to yourself, because self-talk is a great indicator of what we think and feel about ourselves, isn't it? The voice inside of our head is way more critical than anyone speaking to you. And we would never criticize anyone else the way we criticize ourselves, right? We all have that tendency, as I said, to shame or blame ourselves when things don't turn out the way we want them to. We often overlook or forget or dismiss all these factors that are out of our control, right? But we take them on ourselves. So if any of these points ring true for you, it's really time to take a look at the relationship you have with yourself. If you treat other people better than you treat yourself, or if you talk to other people less critically than you talk to yourself, if you're more generous with others than you are with yourself, I invite you to reprioritize your own self-love. I want Spirit to tug at your heart in the days ahead with messages of self-love. And if you pay attention, you can see them everywhere, because we are trying to communicate, especially to kids, that you should love yourself. Remember the children's book, The Little Engine That Could? And where he repeats to himself, I think I can, I think I can. And we're teaching, using that book, we teach the power of self-talk. And movies illustrate the point very beautifully. The Color Purple especially. It illustrates that self-love and belief in self is far more powerful than anyone else's opinion of you or the limitations they may place on you. Alice Walker wrote in The Color Purple, she said, I am an expression of the divine, just like a peach is, just like a fish is. I have a right to be this way. I can't apologize for that, nor can I change it, nor do I want to. We will never have to be other than who we are in order to be successful. We realize that we are as ourselves unlimited and our experience is valid. It is for the rest of the world to recognize this if they choose. Alice Walker. Doesn't that sound like Ernest Holmes? It sounds like Ernest Holmes to me. So this week, with wonder in your heart, explore yourself. Get to know you as if you were going out on a date with you. Become your own best friend in the process and begin to fall in love with you. And maybe this occurs by treating yourself to special things, taking yourself somewhere you really want to go, saying thank you to you. Whatever you choose, honor and celebrate you. And let's be honest, this is going to be challenging for many of us. This is where we're invited to just ask, a trusted friend, a minister, a practitioner, a therapist, somebody, a life coach to guide us on the path of rediscovering just how spiritually magnificent we are and how that magnificence is evident in our lives. Self-care is about asking for support. In the Science of Mind magazine February of 1995, it said, "Our three greatest needs are to feel that we are needed, wanted, and loved, to feel that we belong to the universe in which we live." Think about that. The bravest thing you can do is meet those needs yourself, that we are needed, wanted, and loved, and that we belong. Know that you belong right where you are because you belong to yourself, and surround yourself with people who support you in loving yourself and allow you to love yourself. So I'm going to close with some words of wisdom about self-love you've probably heard or read before. These words have been attributed to the great silent film star Charlie Chaplin, but it was actually written by Kim and Allison McMillan many years after Chaplin made his transition. But regardless of the author, it's a powerful piece of writing. And it says this: "As I began to love myself, I found that anguish and emotional suffering are only warning signs that I was living against my own truth. Today, I know this is authenticity. As I began to love myself, I understood how much it can offend somebody if I try to force my desires on this person, even though I knew the time was not right and the person was not ready for it, and even though this person was me. And today I call it respect. As I began to love myself, I stopped craving for a different life, and I could see that everything that surrounded me was inviting me to grow. And today I call it maturity. As I began to love myself, I understood that in any circumstance, I am in the right place at the right time. Ooh, let me read that one again. As I began to love myself, I understood that at any circumstance, I am in the right place at the right time, and everything happens at the exactly right moment, so I could be calm. And today, I call it self-confidence. As I began to love myself, I quit stealing my own time and I stopped designing huge projects for the future. Today, I only do what brings me joy and happiness, things I love to do and that make my heart cheer, and I do them in my own way and in my own rhythm, and today I call it simplicity. As I began to love myself, I freed myself of anything that is no good for my health: food, people, things, situations, and everything that drew me down and away from myself. And at first, I called this attitude a healthy egoism. Today, I know it is love of oneself. As I began to love myself, I quit trying to always be right. And ever since, I was wrong less of the time. Today, I discovered that is modesty. As I began to love myself and I refused to go on living in the past and worrying about the future, today I only live for the moment where everything is happening. I live each day, day by day, and I call it fulfillment. As I began to love myself, I recognized that my mind can disturb me and it can make me sick. But as it connected to my heart, my mind became a valuable ally. And today I call this connection wisdom of the heart. And we no longer need to fear arguments, confrontations, or any kind of problems with ourselves or others. Even stars collide, and out of their crashing, new worlds are born. Today, I know that is life. And I'll close with today, I love myself so much.